Hello and welcome to the LPTV Broadcast Association Spotlight. I'm Jim Porter, and joining me today is Gregor Jones from Panasonic. Gregor, welcome.
Thank you, Jim. Proud to be here.
Yeah, good. Gregor's here today to talk to us about the CX350, one of Panasonic's newest cameras. Gregor, what can you say about it?
Sure. Wow, where to start? So the CX350 was kind of developed in order to bring a really high-end feature set into a small camera. It was really targeted after House of Worship, NBC news stations, Fox, people who already had big cameras but needed little versions of them, and people who needed big capability but didn't have a lot of budget or a lot of actual space, right? So, but it's like most Panasonic stuff. When failure is not an option and you're in this category, this is the one to go for. One of the things I always like to bring up is, a lot of people are familiar with B&H. I mean, we love all of our resellers, but that's a good benchmark. And this was the number one selling camcorder in that category for a really, really long time. I believe it still is.
You mentioned a broad target audience of user communities too. Some at the higher end of let's say the deeper pockets, and some smaller mom and pop operations. So it fits well into both of those categories.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also, you mentioned the fact that it's great for folks who already have cameras in a variety of different use cases. Maybe it's studio, maybe it's run and gun. How well does this camera fit into as a complement to that overall system?
Well, there's two parts to that, right? So it's if you want to drop this camera into a fleet of cameras that are not the same brand, like a Panasonic, well, it has a 16-axis color correction in it, so you can really dial
matches
it in.
nicely.
It matches really nicely. But if you drop this into a fleet of cameras that are Panasonic, not only do you get a really nice match, but you also get a lot of cool features like the soft, that aren't necessarily inside the camera. But for example, like our software, you can control this camera and, for example, a robotic pan tilt zoom camera with the same software, the same hardware controllers. Mm-hmm. They all exist on the same network, and so you can see them on the same lists. And same thing with NDI and any other application where you're going to be setting this in with a group of other cameras. It's really ready to go.
You mentioned NBC, and so one of the features of the camera is the P2 encoding, but it has a whole variety of encoding formats. Sure. Why don't you speak a little bit to P2, why you put P2 functionality in the camera, and also about the other encoding formats that it has?
Sure. And P2 is Panasonic's codec, and so we brought it out a long time ago in our other earlier models. But the real advantage is probably because of the editing systems, because of the workflow. So if you get into a situation where you have a really high-end workflow, like a P2, you're going to do an NBC or a Fox or somebody who's using that workflow. Camera set up, ready to go. It has all the the different flavors in there. But if you're at a smaller place or going straight to the internet and don't really need all that bit rate or anything, you could put this in like MOV files, HVEC files, AVC HD for people who have legacy workflows. So really, there's a long list of all the different flavors that you can get, but I think the real point to drive home here is that you can go all the way to the top, all the way to the bottom, and so really, no matter where you find yourself, you can have the right codec and the right bit rate, and really dial it in and get exactly what you want.
In addition to the recording bit rates or the recording formats, it's also capable of doing live distribution as well, live streaming.
Yep.
So how does that work? What's needed? Does it come standard with the camera, or is that an extra add-on?
Right. So you can upgrade to NDI. You can get a live stream out of it that way. You can use a dongle, which I'm not sure if this is in here. It's not. It's missing, but there's a little USB dongle you can plug in there, and you can stream off of that. It does RTMP, RTMPS, the secured version for the Facebook.
So you can go directly to the social platforms.
Yep. Go social media platforms. Absolutely. Multiple choices.
Okay. Right. So there's obviously more than we can cover in a short video about how the camera functions, how to use it, some of the best use cases. But Panasonic has a lot of information out on the internet that,
Yeah.
that people can go and self-serve and share information among their coworkers and among their teams. Where can someone find information about how to operate the Panasonic camera?
Absolutely. There's a large list of videos that we produced for this with a guy named Barry Green. And I think it's called the Barry Green CX350 Handbook. And you can find it online. Please, whenever you send this video out, make sure they get my information. I can always forward over any information. But basically, if you look up a CX350 Panasonic and handbook or something, probably in the search terms, it'll just pull down a huge list.
Yeah, I've read through the ebook, and it is quite extensive. And again, it will provide the links. We'll provide the links so that you can get to them after you watch this, and you can download more information and watch the videos on how to operate the camera. So going back to user functionality, this has all the things one would expect in terms of extended battery life. Tell us a little bit about the recording capabilities with the SD cards, what kind of cards it uses, how much recording time one can expect in the field.
Sure. So it does have the dual card system here. So you can see that there. And that's pretty cool because it gives you the ability to record either simultaneously on both cards, record one and have it drop onto the next one as it fills up, or just loop record and just keep recording across both of them, off one onto the other, off one onto the other, that kind.
Any special media requirements, or is it a standard SD card? What's the functionality that's
you
required?
You definitely
there?
want to get the fastest SD cards. You probably will have to put the links in there for the one that we recommend.
Okay.
But one really good note there is that you can also use the P2 micro cards in there. So that's a small P2 card. It looks like an SD card, but it's actually a P2 card. And so you have that ability as well.
Well, that'll help in the post-production environment. You could take the P2 card right out and pop it into your editor.
Yep. Speaking of post-production, it does also have hybrid log gamma. So if you're not familiar with what that is, basically if you were going to shoot it in HDR, this camera can actually give you HDR to the card and then give you a regular feed out of an SDI or an HDMI, actually both at the same time if you wanted it. But what that does, that allows you to collect an image on the card of an HDR picture, but then look in your monitor and see a regular picture, so you're not looking at a pre-graded image, and just super helpful and kind of sets it apart. And I don't know any of them. I'm sure somebody does, but I don't even know of anybody that does a hybrid log gamma where you can do HDR inside internally and then spit out a regular Rec 709. Whatever you want.
You can record both of those simultaneously on the cards. That's correct, right? I mean, you can't record HDR and SDI on the card simultaneously, but you could take an output feed.
Correct. Yeah.
All right. So the CX350, again, very versatile camera for a large user community. Tell us about how well it suits maybe the low end of the budget for folks who are trying to count their pennies perhaps, but still want to have high quality in their production. How does it fit into that environment?
So that's kind of the beauty of this thing, right? Is that this is a camera you can grow with. And you can, get all the regular flavors that you would normally find in a camcorder, but as well as going all the way up to, like we talked about before, like P2 codec and so on and so forth. So, one of the inspirations of this camera, or I don't know if that's a good way to say that, but one of the things we really love about it is that it fits in, every market. And I sell these to customers from, one-man bands who are shooting, events, to house of worships, to, all the way up to big New York City, three-letter stations. And so, the camera will get you fine. And that's, I think that's not even a question. And anyone who holds this camera can see, like, all right, this is, very, very professionally built. It's just, really well built. But what's really great about Panasonic as a company is that, once you get in at a lower level like this, I would say, I wouldn't even call this an entry level because, like I said, it's using some really professional outfits. But once you get in a lower cost at a level like this, there's lots of room to grow, right? So I think we, had talked about it once, but for example, if you wanted to continue on with a smart studio and you wanted to, add robotic cameras, or if you wanted to add ENG cameras or studio cameras, you you get a system when you're with Panasonic where you can expand as and scale as fast as or slow as you want. You're basically future proof. You have all the old legacy stuff as well as all the new latest greatest. But you have an actual family of products to support you, including projectors, including switchers, including like I said, robotics. You name it, right? And so the point is that Panasonic gives you kind of a whole palette of really great technology to kind of grow with.
Tell me how someone who has purchased the Panasonic CX350 can rely on Panasonic to support their efforts.
Jim, that's a really great question. One of the things that we pride ourselves with at Panasonic is that we can handle your business no matter if you're a small little one-man band shooting events to a house of worship to a big TV station. Cameras like this and every other camera that you can add to this camera to create a real working system and solution, we got it.
So this is a terrific camera with a lot of functionality, but the lens is also a very good lens. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So Jim, this is a 20 by optical lens. It's a really great quality glass. It's actually a 35 millimeter equivalent to a 24.5 to 490. So you could imagine if you had to buy just that lens separately, it'd be crazy lens and really expensive. Some of the neat things about it is, of course, it's sitting on a 1-inch sensor. It's got a 5-axis optical image stabilizer. And it's got this really neat hood, so you can close and open this button right here, which will close and open the front of it to protect the lens. It's pretty neat. And it's just a really good quality glass.
And anything else you want to throw in there while we're discussing it? Any other features we forgot to mention?
Well, while we're here, I'll just give you a quick walk around.
Yeah.
So some of the things that kind of strike me from the front is the built-in microphone. All the buttons are, where they're supposed to be, where you would just kind of naturally find them. They're all just really well done, really well placed. It does have time code, gen lock. Those are some things we hadn't talked about. You also have 2 audios. So you have an audio here and one right here. Really great battery life. Like I was saying earlier, the USB dongle would go right here. It just feels great.
Yeah. I got it.
Yeah. So it's really well balanced. It's not fatiguing on the wrist. It's also still big enough to give you a 3-point, what I like to call a football hold if you needed to, kind of hold it low. It does have, different ability to,
Right. So camera control at the top as well as on the shoulder.
Zoom. And then a flip-out LCD, great screen, all the buttons there to navigate the menu and do everything you need. So whether you're in like a low shooting or a high shooting, it's just really, really versatile.
All right. Well, thank you for coming out today. Thank you for telling us about the CX350. And thank you for watching the video. And remember, we'll put the links down below. You can do your own research and find out what you need to learn about the CX350.
Hey,
thanks, Gregor.
Glad to be here. I'm proud to get to share